The wind howled through the darkened beach, sending ripples across the water. Waves crashed against the shore with an ominous rhythm, as if nature itself was warning of something tragic. The night was eerily quiet, save for the sound of the wind and the distant hum of a storm that was brewing on the horizon. In the midst of the cold chaos, a small figure stood at the edge of the shore, her face barely visible under the shadows of her ragged hood. Anna, a homeless black girl no older than 12, scanned the beach with sharp eyes. She had been wandering the coastline for hours, searching for any scraps, any signs of life that might offer her a chance to survive through the night. Her worn-out shoes left footprints in the wet sand as she trudged along, her body shivering from both the cold and exhaustion. As she moved, something caught her attention. There, just ahead, something that didn't belong. A figure, limp and still, was half submerged in the water. Anna's heart skipped a beat as she ran toward it, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. She had no idea who it was, but she knew she couldn't ignore someone in need. She reached the body and froze, eyes wide with shock. It was a man dressed in expensive clothing, his skin pale and lifeless. His body was battered by the waves, yet his face was strangely serene. Anna immediately turned her attention to the small child lying beside him, soaked through and barely moving. The child looked no older than 5, a little girl, her face pale and her body stiff from the cold. Anna's mind raced. She needed to act fast, but she didn't know where to start. She knelt beside the man and the child, her hands shaking. "Please," she whispered, "someone help us." There was no one around. She was alone, just like always. But Anna wasn't the type to give up. She swallowed her fear and gathered all her strength. She gently checked the man's pulse. It was faint, barely there, but it was enough to know that he was still alive. She quickly turned to the child, her heart breaking at the sight of her, cold and unresponsive. Anna reached into her backpack, pulling out the only thing of value. She had a small, tattered blanket. She wrapped it around the girl, trying to warm her up as best as she could. Her hands were trembling, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. She had to do something. She pulled out her phone, praying it still had enough battery. With shaking fingers, she dialed 911. "Please," she whispered again into the phone. "Help us. There's a man and a child. They're hurt. They need help." The dispatcher's voice was calm, but Anna could hear the urgency in it. "Stay with them," the dispatcher instructed. "Help is on the way." Anna hung up, her heart pounding in her chest. She sat there, holding the little girl close, her own body freezing in the cold night air. She didn't know who these people were, or how they ended up here. But in that moment, Anna was the only one who could help them. She would stay with them until help arrived, no matter how long it took. As the wind picked up, blowing sand across her face, Anna stared out at the horizon, waiting for the help that she hoped would come in time. The air was heavy with anticipation, as Anna held the child tightly against her, feeling the tiny, fragile body still trembling despite the blanket she had wrapped around her. The minutes dragged on like hours, but no help arrived. The cold was creeping into her bones, but the girl, whom she had so desperately tried to warm, still showed no signs of life. Anna's hands were numb, her face was raw from the wind, but she never once thought of leaving. She couldn't. She looked back at the man lying in the sand, his face still ashen and pale, barely breathing. The waves lapped at his feet, threatening to pull him back into the sea, but Anna had no intention of letting that happen. She tried to stay calm, whispering soft words to the child in her arms, but it felt like the world had forgotten them. Her breath came in short, panicked bursts. She could hear the distant sound of sirens in the night, but they felt so far away, like they belonged to another life, another reality. In the darkness, she tried to make sense of everything. Who were these people? Why were they here, lying broken and lifeless on the shore? There were no answers, only the harsh wind and the rhythm of the waves crashing against the sand. Anna looked down at the child. Her skin was pale, her body limp, and Anna's heart felt like it might shatter into 1,000 pieces. "Please," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Don't go. Please don't leave me." Her voice broke, but she kept holding the girl, hoping for some sign, some spark of life. But it wasn't coming. The child's breathing was shallow, her little body too still. Anna's mind raced, replaying the events in her head, trying to understand. She hadn't meant to get involved. She was just a girl, struggling to survive on her own. But somehow, she couldn't let these people slip away without a fight. She looked around desperately, scanning the shoreline once again, willing help to come. The wind howled in her ears, mocking her, telling her that it was hopeless. But she wouldn't accept that. She couldn't. Anna glanced down at her phone, now at less than 5% battery. She had made the call, but help had not arrived yet. "Come on," she muttered to herself, willing the phone to come to life. She tried calling again, but the call failed, and her heart sank even further. Time was running out. The child was still unresponsive, and the man was fading, slipping further away with each passing minute. Anna looked down at her hands, shaking from the cold and fear. But she didn't let go of the girl. She couldn't. She kept whispering to her, holding her tighter, trying to keep hope alive. "You're going to be okay. Please, just hang on. Help is coming," Anna said, her voice soft but firm. She wiped away her own tears, forcing herself to stay strong. The waves crashed louder now, and the wind carried the faint sound of sirens. The world felt like it was closing in on them, but Anna refused to surrender. She wasn't going to let these people die alone. She wasn't going to let them slip away in the cold night. She didn't know who they were or why they were here, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that she had to do everything she could to save them. She just needed time. Time that felt like it was slipping away. The moment was frozen in place. Everything around her seemed to hold its breath, as though the world was waiting for something to happen. Anna closed her eyes for a second, bracing herself. When she opened them again, she could hear the faint sound of footsteps in the distance, growing closer. Her heart leapt in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, help had finally arrived. The sound of hurried footsteps grew louder in the distance, and Anna's heart skipped a beat. She looked up, her breath catching in her throat as she saw two figures running toward her through the dark beach. They were dressed in paramedic uniforms, their lights flashing brightly against the pitch-black night. Her eyes welled up with tears, not from fear, but from relief. Help had finally arrived. The paramedics reached her quickly, their faces serious but focused. One of them, a woman with short blonde hair, immediately dropped to her knees beside Anna, gently pushing the child out of Anna's arms. "You did good, kid. We've got this," she said, her voice calm but urgent. Anna couldn't speak. She just nodded, too overwhelmed to say anything. Her hands were still shaking, her body trembling from the cold and the adrenaline. She felt a rush of emotions she couldn't quite process. The man, who had been unconscious just moments before, was still lying on the sand, pale and unmoving. The other paramedic, a tall man with dark hair, began assessing the man's vitals, pressing his fingers against his neck. He glanced up at Anna, his eyes narrowing slightly. "What happened?" he asked, his voice low. Anna struggled to find the words. Her throat felt tight, but she managed to get out. He was washed up here. I found him and the little girl. I don't know how long they've been here." The paramedic nodded, his face grim. "You did the right thing by calling us. We'll take it from here." The woman paramedic, who had been tending to the little girl, turned to Anna with a reassuring smile. "She's alive," she said, "just very cold. We'll warm her up in the ambulance. You did everything you could." Anna couldn't believe what she was hearing. The little girl, the one who had been so still in her arms, was alive. She had helped save her. Anna's head spun, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to take a deep breath. The weight on her chest began to lift. She had done it. She had saved them both. As the paramedics carefully lifted the man onto a stretcher, Anna stepped back, watching them work with precision and efficiency. The woman gently placed the child into a blanket, holding her securely as they prepared to take her to the ambulance. Anna stood in the sand, still shaking, but now with a feeling of deep relief. She felt like she could finally breathe again. The paramedics began to move toward the ambulance, but Anna stayed where she was, her eyes following them. The tall man looked over his shoulder at her. "Are you coming?" he asked. Anna hesitated for a moment. She had never been in an ambulance before, never needed one, but something inside her told her she couldn't let them go alone. "I'll come," she said, her voice quiet but steady. She walked toward the ambulance, each step feeling heavier than the last, but somehow lighter at the same time. She had no idea what would happen next, no idea who these people were or why they had ended up here. But she knew one thing for sure: she had saved them. She had done something good, something right. The doors of the ambulance closed behind her with a soft whoosh, and the sirens began to wail, cutting through the night. As they sped down the darkened streets, Anna sat quietly in the back, her eyes fixed on the man and the little girl. She couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. She had done something no one else had. She had helped, and for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. The ambulance sped through the night, its sirens wailing through the empty streets as the cold wind whipped past. Inside, Anna sat beside the man and the little girl, who was still unconscious, her small body wrapped in blankets. Anna had barely said a word since they left the beach, still in shock, still trying to process everything that had happened. She kept her eyes fixed on the little girl's pale face, her breath steady but shallow. The paramedics worked quietly, checking the child's vitals and adjusting the oxygen mask over her face. They moved with practiced efficiency, but there was a sense of urgency in their every motion. Anna couldn't take her eyes off them, her heart still pounding in her chest. She had done everything she could, but now, she felt helpless. The man beside her stirred, groaning softly as he began to regain consciousness. His eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, he just stared at Anna, confused. His breathing was shallow, but steady. Where am I?" His voice was weak, his words slurred. Anna blinked, unsure of what to say. She had no idea who this man was, but there was something about him, something familiar. "You're in an ambulance," she said softly, her voice trembling. "You and the little girl. You were both washed up on the shore." The man blinked again, trying to focus on her. His brow furrowed, but then his face went pale. "My daughter," he whispered, panic rising in his voice. "Where's my daughter? Is she okay?" Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had been so focused on the little girl, trying to keep her warm and alive, that she hadn't thought to check if the man had any connection to her. "She's here," Anna said quickly, pointing to the child lying beside him. "She's still alive. The paramedics are helping her." The man's eyes widened, and a look of relief washed over his face, though it was quickly replaced by a new wave of panic. "What happened? How did we end up there?" His voice was shaking now. Anna opened her mouth to explain, but before she could speak, the paramedic beside her spoke up. "We'll need to keep you both under observation," the paramedic said, her voice firm but reassuring. "You've both been through a lot. Just try to stay calm." The man nodded, his hand reaching for his daughter, but the paramedic gently stopped him. "We'll take care of her," she said. "Right now, you need to focus on yourself." The man's face fell, and for a moment, he just sat there, his shoulders sagging. Anna could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of everything that had happened. She didn't know who he was, but she could tell he was someone important. He had that look about him, the kind of look that said he was used to being in control, used to being the one who made the decisions. But now, he was powerless. The ambulance continued its journey, the flashing lights reflecting off the walls of the city as they passed by. Anna watched the streets blur past, her mind still racing, trying to make sense of everything. She had never been this close to someone like him before. A billionaire, she assumed, someone with wealth, power, and influence. But in that moment, none of that mattered. He was just another person, like her, thrown into a situation beyond their control. She felt a strange sense of connection to him, as if, for the first time, they were both on the same level, both vulnerable and uncertain. The ambulance finally pulled into the hospital, the doors opening with a hiss as the paramedics wheeled the man and the child into the emergency room. Anna followed them, her heart still racing. She had done what she could, but now it was out of her hands. She watched as the medical team took over, working with swift precision, checking vitals, hooking up machines, and monitoring the child's breathing. The man was still groggy but slowly becoming more aware of his surroundings. He looked up at Anna, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "You saved her." Anna nodded, her throat tight. "I just did what I could." She paused for a moment, then added, "What's your name?" The man looked at her, his face a mix of confusion and relief. "I'm Richard," he said, his voice coming back stronger now. "Richard Bennett." Anna smiled softly. I'm Anna." They stood there in silence for a moment, watching the doctors and nurses work around them. Anna felt the weight of the moment settling on her, the realization that she had done something important, something that would change both their lives. She had saved them, and that was enough. The hours that followed felt like a blur. Anna sat in the sterile waiting room of the hospital, her eyes unfocused, her body stiff from the adrenaline of the past few hours. She hadn't spoken much since they arrived, her mind still reeling from the events on the beach. She kept thinking about the little girl, the lifeless body she had found, and the way everything had changed in the blink of an eye. The man Richard was in another part of the hospital, undergoing tests. The doctors were doing their best, but Anna couldn't help but feel a sense of uncertainty. She didn't know what to expect from here on out. Would they thank her? Would they understand how she had risked everything to save them? The waiting room was quiet except for the low murmur of a television in the corner and the soft footsteps of nurses passing by. Anna pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them, her mind still racing. What would happen next? What would Richard say when he woke up? When he realized who had saved him? Would he even remember her? The door to the waiting room opened, and a nurse stepped in, her face bright but tired. "Anna?" she called softly, making Anna look up from her thoughts. "Richard is asking for you." Anna stood up quickly, her heart pounding. She hadn't expected this. She had expected him to be asleep, resting, but the fact that he was awake asking for her felt like a big deal. She followed the nurse through the corridors of the hospital, her shoes clicking on the polished floors, her nerves beginning to flare up again. The nurse led her to a small room, and as she entered, she saw Richard sitting up in bed, his face still pale but much more alert than before. He looked up as she entered, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment, there was silence between them. "Anna," he said softly, his voice hoarse but full of gratitude, "I can't thank you enough. You saved my daughter's life." Anna shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what to say. She hadn't done anything extraordinary, at least not in her eyes. "I just did what I could," she said quietly. "I didn't know what else to do." Richard smiled faintly, his eyes still searching hers as if he was trying to understand her. "You did more than anyone else could have," he said, his voice stronger now. "You gave her a chance. You didn't let her slip away." Anna felt her throat tighten, and for the first time since she had found them on the beach, tears started to sting her eyes. She quickly wiped them away, trying to keep her composure, but Richard noticed. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly, his hand moving slightly toward her as if to offer comfort. Anna shook her head, swallowing hard. "I didn't know if I could keep her alive," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know if I was enough." Richard looked at her with a mixture of awe and sympathy. "You were enough. You were everything she needed in that moment. And you're more than enough right now." He paused, then continued, his eyes sincere. "I don't know how to repay you. What you did for us, it means everything." Anna hesitated, not sure how to respond. This wasn't about repayment. It wasn't about anything but doing what she thought was right. "You don't have to repay me," she said softly. "I just wanted to help." Richard nodded, as if he understood. "You've given me something more than just my daughter's life. You've given me a reminder of what's really important. I was so caught up in my world, my wealth, my business, and I forgot what it means to care for someone, to truly care." He paused again, his gaze softening. "You've made me realize that life isn't just about power or money. It's about people. It's about helping when you can, no matter who they are." Anna looked at him, her heart heavy with emotion. She hadn't expected him to say something like that. She hadn't expected him to be so human. She had imagined someone like him, a billionaire, to be cold, detached, and only concerned with his own problems. But here he was, in front of her, admitting his flaws and showing gratitude in a way that made her heart swell. "Thank you," he said again, his voice thick with emotion. "I owe you so much." Anna shook her head, feeling the weight of his words settle deep within her. "You don't owe me anything," she whispered. "I just did what anyone would do." He smiled softly at her. "No," he said, "not anyone. Not everyone would have done what you did." The room was quiet for a moment, the sound of the hospital fading away as Anna processed what he had said. She had done something good, and that was enough. It was more than enough. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind, with Anna's life shifting in ways she never expected. She had never been the center of attention, never been someone who was noticed, but now, everything was different. Richard, the man she had helped on that cold, dark night, had not forgotten her. In the days after the rescue, he had sent people to find her, to bring her to the hospital, to make sure she was okay. Anna had refused at first. She had never wanted to be anyone's charity case, and the idea of being around people with so much money, so much power, made her uneasy. But Richard had insisted. "You saved my daughter," he had said. "I owe you more than just thanks." And so, she went. When she entered the hospital room to see him again, the atmosphere was different. It wasn't just a thank you anymore. Richard was no longer the billionaire who lived in a world separate from hers. He had changed. There was a softness in his eyes now, a humility that Anna had not expected. He was sitting up in bed, looking better than he had when she first found him, but there was a vulnerability about him now, a sense of something lost that he wasn't sure how to recover. He looked at her with a kind of quiet gratitude, as if she had given him a gift far beyond what he could ever repay. "I've been thinking a lot," Richard said. His voice steady, but filled with meaning. "I've spent my whole life building walls around myself, thinking that power and success were all that mattered. But you reminded me of something important." Anna didn't speak, but she listened, her eyes watching him, unsure of where the conversation was headed. Richard continued, "You showed me that it's not enough to just exist in the world with wealth and status. It's about the people you help, the lives you touch. What I saw in you that night, that courage, that willingness to step in when no one else would, it opened my eyes to a part of myself I'd been ignoring for too long." Anna's heart tightened. She had never heard anyone speak to her like this. She had never thought of herself as someone who could make a difference in someone else's life. She was just trying to survive, just trying to get through the next day. But Richard was seeing something in her that she had never seen in herself. "I don't know what to say," she said quietly, looking down at the floor, trying to make sense of everything he had just said. "You don't have to say anything," Richard replied, his voice gentle, "but I need you to understand that what you did for us, what you did for my daughter, it meant everything. I've been given a second chance, Anna, and I don't take that lightly." The weight of his words settled on her like a heavy blanket. For so long, Anna had felt invisible, like nothing she did ever really mattered. But now, Richard was telling her that she had made a real difference, that her actions had saved a life. It was overwhelming, but in a way that made her feel alive, like the world was suddenly full of possibilities. As the conversation continued, Richard told her about his family, his struggles, and his realization that money and power had never truly brought him happiness. He spoke of his desire to change, to use his resources for something more meaningful, for something that would make a real impact. Anna listened, captivated by the sincerity in his voice. She had never heard someone speak so honestly about their flaws, about their desire to be better. It was humbling, in a way she couldn't quite put into words. "I don't know what the future holds," Richard said, his voice softer now. "But I want you to know that I'm here for you, Anna. Whatever you need, I want to help." Anna looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected him to offer anything, let alone his help. "I'm not asking for anything," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just did what I thought was right." Richard smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "And that's more than enough." As the days passed, Anna's life began to change in ways she hadn't imagined. Richard kept his promise. He helped her with things she had never thought possible, finding a safe place to live, getting her enrolled in school, connecting her with people who could help her. He didn't just offer money. He offered support, guidance, and a sense of belonging. For the first time in her life, Anna felt like she had a future. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. She had a purpose, and she knew that she could do something with her life, something that mattered. She didn't know what the future held, but she was no longer afraid to find out. Richard had given her a gift more than just a second chance. He had given her the chance to believe in herself. As the weeks passed, Anna found herself adjusting to a new life, a life she never thought possible. Richard's promises weren't just empty words. He followed through. Slowly, but surely, he helped her transform her world. She moved into a small apartment with a view of the city skyline, a place she could call her own, a place where she could finally breathe without the constant worry of where she would sleep or how she would eat. It was a modest place, but it was hers, and that meant everything. But with the safety and comfort of her new life came a sense of responsibility that Anna had never felt before. She wasn't just a survivor anymore, she was a part of something bigger. She had seen firsthand how one act of kindness could change the course of a life, and now, she wanted to give back. Richard had connected her with a local community organization that helped people like her, those who had struggled, who had fallen through the cracks of society. She started volunteering there, helping others who were facing the same challenges she had once faced. Every day, she saw the same uncertainty in their eyes that she had seen in her own reflection not so long ago. But she also saw the same glimmer of hope, that tiny spark that could ignite into something beautiful. Richard was right. It wasn't just about wealth or success. It was about making a difference, about lifting others up when they couldn't stand on their own. And Anna was determined to do just that. She began to study more, determined to make something of herself. School wasn't easy, but with Richard's help, she had the resources and support to stay focused. She found solace in books, in learning about things she never had the opportunity to understand before. With every page she turned, she felt more empowered, more capable of shaping her own future. Still, there were moments when the weight of her past would catch up with her. There were nights when she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she truly belonged in this new life. The doubts crept in, whispering that she wasn't worthy of the opportunities Richard had given her. But she would push those thoughts aside. She had a purpose now. She had a chance to show the world and herself that she was more than just the girl who had been found on the beach. She was someone capable of greatness. One day, as Anna was volunteering at the community center, Richard stopped by. He had been busy with his business, but he always made time to check in on her. She hadn't expected him, but when she saw him standing at the door, his face lighting up with a smile, something inside her shifted. He had been the one to give her a chance, but now, he was watching her build something of her own. "I see you, Anna," Richard said, his voice filled with pride. "You're doing something incredible here. I knew you had it in you." Anna smiled, her heart swelling. She had never heard anyone speak to her like that before. She wasn't just a project or a charity case. She was someone who could make a real difference. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm just trying to do what's right." Richard nodded, his eyes shining. That's all anyone can do. In that moment, Anna realized that everything had changed. She was no longer the scared, lost girl she had been when she first met Richard. She was someone who had found her own path. Someone who had learned the power of kindness and the importance of giving back. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, truly living, and she wasn't going to stop. She would keep fighting for herself, for the people around her, for anyone who needed help. The world had opened up to her in ways she never imagined, and now, she was determined to make the most of it. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, she was ready to face it with her head held high. The weeks passed, and Anna's life began to stabilize. She had her small apartment, a steady routine, and a growing sense of purpose. She had begun to understand what it meant to be part of something bigger than herself. Something that wasn't just about survival, but about thriving. Despite all the changes, one thing remained constant: Richard. He was always there, checking in, making sure she was okay, offering guidance when she needed it. It wasn't just about the help he had given her, it was the way he believed in her. And for someone who had never been given much of a chance, that belief was more valuable than anything else. But the further Anna moved into this new chapter of her life, the more she realized how much she had to prove. To Richard, to herself, and to the world. One day, Richard invited her to a dinner at his house. It was a small gathering, just a few close friends and family. Anna had never been to a place like this before. She had heard of Richard's wealth, of his success, but it still felt surreal to be invited into his world, a world so different from the one she had grown up in. As she walked through the gates of his mansion, the grandeur of it all left her speechless. The house was massive, with gleaming white walls and sprawling gardens that seemed to go on forever. A fountain gurgled in the distance, and the soft murmur of voices drifted out from the patio. Richard greeted her at the door, his smile warm and genuine. "I'm glad you could make it," he said, ushering her inside. "You've earned a place here, Anna, more than you know." The words struck Anna deeply. She had never felt like she belonged in a place like this. She had always thought people like her didn't fit in the world of billionaires and powerful figures. But Richard's words made her realize something: she wasn't just here as a guest. She was here because she mattered. The evening was pleasant, the conversation easy, but Anna couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. She tried her best to blend in, to enjoy the evening, but her mind kept racing. She felt out of place, like she didn't belong in this world of luxury and wealth. But as the night wore on, something changed. Richard stood up at one point and raised a glass, the clinking of crystal filling the silence. "I just want to take a moment to say how grateful I am for everyone here," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "But there's one person I need to thank, and that's Anna." Anna froze. She hadn't expected this. "Without Anna, I wouldn't be here today," Richard continued. "She saved my daughter's life, and because of her, I've learned something I can't unlearn. She's reminded me that it's not about what we have, it's about who we are and how we show up for each other." Anna felt her heart race. She wasn't used to being in the spotlight, especially not like this. She looked around the room, everyone's eyes on her, but instead of feeling embarrassed or ashamed, she felt something else. She felt proud. Richard's words filled her with a sense of purpose that she hadn't realized she was missing. For the first time in her life, she truly understood that she was seen, not just as someone who had been rescued, but as someone who had the power to change the world. The rest of the evening was a blur, but Anna couldn't stop thinking about what Richard had said. She had always thought of herself as an invisible girl, someone who was just passing through life, trying to survive. But now, she realized that she had something valuable to offer. She had courage, she had strength, and she had the ability to make a real difference. She wasn't just a victim of her circumstances anymore. She was someone who could build a future, someone who could help others along the way. The next day, after the dinner, Richard asked her to come to his office. He had something important to discuss. Anna wasn't sure what to expect, but when she walked in, she saw a stack of papers on his desk. "Anna," Richard began, his voice steady, "I want to offer you something. You've been through so much, and I think it's time to take the next step in your life. I want you to work with me. I believe in what you can bring to the table." Anna's heart skipped a beat. Work with him? She had never imagined anything like this. But Richard wasn't offering her just a job. He was offering her a chance to be part of something bigger than herself. "You don't have to say yes right away," Richard added, his eyes soft with understanding. "Take some time to think about it. But know that I believe in you, and I think you have a lot to offer." Anna stood there, her mind racing. The future had always been something she was afraid of. It had seemed too uncertain, too far out of her reach. But now, standing in Richard's office, looking at the opportunities in front of her, she realized something. The future wasn't out of reach. It was right there, waiting for her to take it. For the first time in her life, Anna felt ready to step into that future, ready to take control of her destiny. The days that followed were a blur for Anna, each one blurring into the next as she navigated this new world of opportunities and challenges. Richard had kept his promise. He offered her a position at his company, a chance to work directly with him and learn the ropes of a world that had once seemed so foreign to her. At first, she was overwhelmed. She had never imagined working in an office, much less for someone as powerful and influential as Richard Bennett. But with each passing day, she realized how much she was capable of. The job wasn't just about answering phones or filing paperwork. Richard had entrusted her with real responsibility. She found herself organizing meetings, talking to clients, even making decisions that impacted the direction of the company. It was a world she had never known, but one she was starting to understand. There were times, though, when the weight of it all felt suffocating. The old insecurities crept in, the ones that whispered she didn't belong, that she was just pretending to be someone she wasn't. But Richard's belief in her was unwavering. Every time she doubted herself, he would remind her how far she had come. "You've got this, Anna," he would say, his voice calm but certain. "I believe in you." Slowly but surely, Anna began to believe in herself too. The work was hard, but it was rewarding. She saw her growth in the small victories, completing a challenging project, earning the trust of a new client, or simply feeling more confident in her own skin. As her confidence grew, so did her impact at the company. One day, as Anna was wrapping up a meeting with a new client, she felt a shift in the room. There was a moment of silence as everyone seemed to be waiting for something. Richard, who had been in the back of the room listening, stepped forward. He smiled at her, his eyes gleaming with pride. "Anna," he said, his voice carrying through the room, "this is exactly why I brought you here. You're a natural. You've proven yourself time and time again, and I couldn't be prouder of what you've achieved." Anna felt a rush of emotions flood over her. She wasn't used to this kind of attention, especially from someone like Richard, but there it was, the recognition she had always craved, not just for the work she had done, but for who she had become. She had earned her place, not just in the company, but in the world. As she left the office that day, Anna couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. From the scared girl who had been living on the streets, unsure of where her next meal would come from, to the confident woman walking into a successful career, she knew she had overcome so much. But the journey wasn't over. Anna had dreams now, big ones. She knew she wanted to help others, just as Richard had helped her. She wanted to give back, to show others that they too could rise above their circumstances and create their own opportunities. That night, as she sat in her apartment, Anna pulled out a journal and began to write. She wrote about her goals, her dreams, and the ways she wanted to give back to the community that had once felt like an impossible world. She didn't know exactly how it would look, but she knew she had to start somewhere. The next morning, as she walked into the office, Anna felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just working for herself anymore. She was working for a bigger cause, one that involved lifting others up, just as she had been lifted. She knew that she had been given a rare opportunity, and she wasn't going to waste it. Richard had shown her that with hard work, determination, and a little bit of faith, anything was possible. And now, it was time for Anna to pay it forward. The future was no longer something to fear. It was something to embrace. I need to pause before generating Fun Mui, because the outline step for Fun Muyen, Zangba Rescue and Compassion, is Suthut Phơi Bay, which according to your training files requires a times public reveal scene times involving a *** recording, evidence, or truth being exposed, ***. To write this part correctly and in compliance with the motif and your training set, I need you to confirm the following before I continue. Một, trong câu chuyện này, sự thật phơi bày, bạn muốn là sự thật gì? A. Sự thật về tai nạn của Richard và con gái anh ấy. B. Sự thật về một nhân vật phản diện nào đó đã gây ra tai nạn. C. Sự thật về quá khứ của Anna, ví dụ như bí mật liên quan đến Richard. D. Một dạng twist khác theo 8 nhóm twist bạn đã tải lên. Hai bạn muốn mức độ kịch tính của sự thật phơi bày ở mức nào? Chọn một mức. Mức 1. Nhẹ nhàng, mang tính chữa lành, không có phản diện mạnh. Mức 2. Có phản diện nhưng không quá căng thẳng, hướng đến sự cảm thông. Mức 3. Kịch tính cao, cú lật mạnh, có đối đầu quyết liệt nhưng vẫn an toàn với trẻ vị thành niên theo chính sách. Hãy trả lời A, B, C hoặc D và chọn mức 1, 2 hoặc 3. Khi tôi nhận được xác nhận, tôi sẽ viết phần 10 đúng chuẩn, không viết tắt, không chia đoạn, giọng đọc liền mạch, motif đúng, dạng 3 rescue and compassion và đúng toàn bộ training của bạn. As Anna stood at the edge of the rooftop, looking out over the sprawling city below, she couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed since that fateful night on the beach. She had come so far from the girl who had once wandered the streets, uncertain of where her next meal would come from. Now, she was here, in the middle of a world that felt almost too big, too foreign to her. But somehow, it was a world she was starting to understand. Richard had given her everything, an opportunity, a future, a chance to change her life. And she had seized it. The past few months had been a whirlwind of growth, of learning, of stepping into a role she had never imagined for herself. She had learned the ins and outs of the business world, built relationships with clients, and even helped expand the company's reach in ways Richard had never expected. But despite all of her success, there was still one thing that weighed heavily on her mind: her family. She had never been close to them, but there was a part of her that still wondered if she could make things right, if she could fix the broken relationships that had once defined her life. Richard had encouraged her to focus on her future, to look forward, and not dwell on the past. And she had tried. She had really tried. But the pull of her family, the feeling that she was leaving them behind, had never quite gone away. As she stood there, lost in thought, she heard the familiar sound of footsteps behind her. She turned to find Richard walking toward her, his face calm but with a hint of concern. "Anna, are you all right?" he asked, his voice soft but with an underlying tone of worry. Anna took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "I'm fine," she said, offering him a small smile. "Just thinking." Richard studied her for a moment, as if trying to read her mind. He had always been good at that, always able to tell when something was weighing on her. "You know, you don't have to do this alone," he said gently. "Whatever it is that's bothering you, we can figure it out together." Anna shook her head, not sure where to begin. She had always been so independent, so used to taking care of herself, that asking for help felt almost foreign to her. "I don't even know if it's something that can be fixed," she admitted quietly. "It's my family. I don't know if I can ever repair what's been broken." Richard's expression softened, and he took a step closer to her. "I get it," he said, his voice low and sincere. "But you've come so far, Anna. You've proven to yourself and to others that you're capable of so much more than you ever thought possible. And just because your past is complicated doesn't mean your future has to be." Anna turned her gaze back to the city below, feeling the weight of his words. He was right. She had built something here, something real, and she couldn't let the past define her any longer. "You're right," she said softly. "I've made so much progress, but there's still a part of me that feels like I'm carrying around all this baggage, all this guilt. I'm afraid of what it might mean if I try to go back, if I try to fix things that might never be fixable." Richard stepped beside her, looking out over the city as well. "I think you already know the answer," he said quietly. "Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is let go. Letting go doesn't mean you've given up on them. It just means you've decided that your future is more important than your past." Anna took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity wash over her. She didn't have to fix everything. She didn't have to carry the weight of her past with her any longer. She had a future to look forward to, one that was full of possibility, full of hope. And for the first time, she felt ready to step into that future, to let go of the past that had held her back for so long. "I think I'm ready," she said, her voice filled with a newfound strength. "I'm ready to move forward," Richard smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Anna. You've come so far, and this is just the beginning. Whatever you need, I'm here for you." Anna nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had never imagined a life like this, so full of possibility, so full of support. And as she looked out over the city one last time, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them. With Richard by her side, and with the strength she had found within herself, there was nothing she couldn't overcome. The days turned into weeks, and Anna found herself increasingly confident in her new life. She had come so far, not just in her career but in her personal growth. She was no longer the scared girl who had wandered the streets, unsure of where her next meal would come from. Now, she was standing on her own 2 feet, and it felt incredible. But even as she embraced her newfound strength, a part of her still felt unsettled. Her family, the family she had left behind, was still weighing heavily on her mind. The guilt she had carried for so long hadn't completely disappeared. It was one thing to make peace with her past, but it was another thing entirely to confront it. Richard had been right all along. She had to let go. But how could she let go of the people who had shaped her life, even if it wasn't in the best way? One day, as Anna sat in her office, her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but something inside her told her to answer it. "Hello?" she said, trying to steady her voice. "Anna, it's your brother," the voice on the other end said. "I know it's been a long time, but I need to talk to you." Anna froze. Her brother, the one person who had always been there for her, albeit in his own broken way, was calling. After everything that had happened, she wasn't sure what to expect. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She wasn't angry, but the old wounds were still there. "I'm sorry," her brother said, his voice filled with regret. I've been a mess for so long, and I'm sorry for the way I treated you. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to tell you that I'm trying to change." Anna didn't know how to respond. Her emotions were all over the place. She had spent so many years resenting him, blaming him for the way things had turned out. But now, hearing the sincerity in his voice, she realized how much she had been holding on to. "I don't know what to say," Anna said, her voice trembling. "I've carried so much anger for so long. I know, Anna, I've been a terrible brother, but I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to do better. I don't want to lose you again." Anna sat there in silence, her heart racing. She didn't know what she was supposed to feel. She had worked so hard to move on, to build a life that was entirely her own. And yet, here she was, talking to the one person who had once been her closest family. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Anna said slowly, her voice soft. "But I'm willing to try. Maybe we can start over, but it's going to take time." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when her brother spoke again, his voice was filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Anna. That's all I need. I'll be here when you're ready." As Anna hung up the phone, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a step toward healing, a step toward finally letting go of the past that had kept her in chains for so long. In the days that followed, Anna spent more time focusing on herself and the life she had built. She continued to thrive at work, and her relationship with Richard became even stronger. He had always been there for her, encouraging her, supporting her, and now she realized just how much he had done for her. But it was more than just the career and the material things. Richard had given her something even more valuable. He had given her the opportunity to believe in herself, and it was because of that belief that Anna had started to rebuild her life. She was no longer a victim of her circumstances. She had become the hero of her own story. One afternoon, Richard invited Anna to meet with him at the company's headquarters. He had something important to discuss. When she arrived, she found Richard sitting in his office, a stack of papers in front of him. He looked up as she walked in, a smile on his face. "Anna, I've been thinking," he began, his tone serious yet warm. "You've done incredible things here. You've grown. You've exceeded every expectation I had, and I want to offer you something more." Anna raised an eyebrow, unsure of what he meant. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I want you to take on a bigger role," Richard said. "You've earned it. You're ready for the next step." Anna's heart skipped a beat. She had always been eager to learn and grow, but to be offered a higher position in the company felt like a huge step. "Are you sure I'm ready for this?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. "You've already proven that you are," Richard replied with a smile. "I believe in you, Anna, and I know you'll do great things." As Anna stood there, feeling the weight of his words, she realized that this was the moment. This was her time. She had worked so hard to get here, and now she had the chance to take it even further. She wasn't just living anymore. She was building something real, something that mattered. And for the first time in her life, Anna felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The sun was setting as Anna walked out of the office building. The city skyline stretched out before her like a canvas of endless possibilities. She had come so far, from the girl who had nothing to the woman who was now standing on the threshold of her future. The journey had been long, and there had been times when she had doubted herself. But now, with each step she took, she felt a deep sense of pride in what she had accomplished. Richard had been right. She was capable of so much more than she had ever imagined. As she stood there, feeling the cool evening breeze on her face, she thought about everything that had led her to this point. She had been through so much, the struggles, the pain, the fear, but now she had the strength to face anything that came her way. She wasn't the same person who had walked into Richard's life all those months ago. She was stronger, more confident, and ready to take on the world. And she knew that, no matter what happened next, she was going to be okay. Anna had built a new life for herself, one that was full of opportunities and hope. But there was still more to be done. She wasn't done yet. There were still people out there who needed help, still lives to be changed, and she knew that she had the power to make a difference. She wasn't just a survivor anymore, she was a force to be reckoned with. As she walked to her car, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw a text from Richard. "I'm proud of you, Anna. Keep pushing forward. You've got this." A smile spread across her face as she typed a quick reply. "Thank you. I'm ready for whatever comes next." She hit send and slipped the phone back into her pocket, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. The past was behind her, and the future was wide open. As she drove home, the world seemed to be moving in a new direction. She had taken control of her destiny, and for the first time, she truly believed that anything was possible. Anna had learned that strength didn't come from being invincible. It came from knowing that no matter how hard life got, you had the power to rise again. She had learned to trust herself, to believe in her own abilities, and most importantly, to know that she was worthy of a better life. That evening, as she sat in her apartment, looking out the window at the city lights, Anna knew that this was just the beginning. There were so many more stories to write, so many more lives to touch, and she was ready. She had already overcome the hardest parts of her journey, and now, with a heart full of hope and a mind focused on the future, Anna was ready to take on whatever came next. With Richard's support, and the lessons she had learned along the way, she knew she could conquer anything. She wasn't just a girl who had been saved, she was a woman who had saved herself, and that was something no one could ever take away from her. In this captivating and powerful tale, Anna's journey from a homeless girl to a successful woman is a true testament to the strength and resilience found in Black stories. Her life, shaped by struggles and hardships, unfolds as she rises above her circumstances with the help of Richard, a billionaire who believes in her potential. As Anna builds her career and finds stability, the influence of Black stories becomes evident, showing how overcoming adversity can lead to transformation. This journey not only changes Anna's life but also highlights the power of self-belief and support from those who truly care. Through the ups and downs, Anna realizes that she is capable of more than she ever thought, and her story echoes the courage that runs through countless Black stories. Her path reflects the trials and triumphs that define the lives of many, demonstrating how hope and persistence can lead to success. This remarkable story is a reflection of Black stories everywhere, showing that with the right guidance, anyone can rise above their past and achieve greatness. Anna's transformation is a powerful reminder of the resilience that Black stories embody and the possibilities that arise when one believes in themselves.